Hello, and welcome to Revamping Retirement, a podcast brought to you by Kamak Retirement Group, where we tackle the retirement plan-related issues plaguing fiduciaries and plan sponsors. Our host, Mike Webb, has more than 25 years of experience in the retirement plan industry and is a nationally recognized subject matter expert. We hope you enjoy Revamping Retirement.
Thanks, Kara. Kara McCauley, our wonderful producer as always. And Mike Webb here for another exciting episode of Revamping Retirement. In fact, I'm going to give you the Mike Webb guarantee today that if you're not entertained in the next 20 minutes, you can exchange this podcast for a full refund. Oh, wait, scratch that. You don't actually pay anything for the podcast, but I think you get the drift. I think we're all going to have a really good time with this. My guest this afternoon is one quarter of the Retireholics. His program airs every Thursday night at 7:30 Eastern, 4:30 Pacific. If you haven't checked it out, you should. Welcome, please, to the program, Mr. J.D. Carlson. J.D., how you doing today?
Hey, man. Thanks for having me. I'm doing good today.
I'm doing well today because I've not only do I have the
you got the merch. You got the merch. You got the hoodie.
The Retireholics clothing line. And for those of you who can't see it, JD is actually prominently featured along with his three Retireholics counterparts on this wonderful clothing line. So now that we're properly attired, I think we can begin the proceedings. The Retireholics, it's when I first turned into the show, it's really amazing because you mix, we talk about retirement plans, of course, that's probably what you're there for. But you also mix in talk about your favorite beverages. You actually have your favorite beverages, or sometimes not so favorite beverages. You play some games. You talk about a lot of topics that come to the top of your head. How did this all get started? I mean, this is such a revolution to me. In watching it was such a revolutionary thing. Saying, my goodness, no one else is doing anything that I've seen that's like this. How did you say, hey guys, we want to put together a funny show about retirement?
Yeah, it's not rocket science. I mean, it was 6 years ago as a, financial services company or a third-party administrator. We were sitting around and we did the normal type of marketing, right? Webinars, seminars. We'd go to hotels and feed people. We'd go to steakhouses and feed people and do a PowerPoint presentation. And we were sitting around going like, okay, how do we next level this? And at the time we thought, okay, well, video, not specifically YouTube, but we were kicking around YouTube as the platform where you could put it, but also just sending videos out. And we thought video is the way to do it because advisors could watch it on demand, right? They don't have to show up Tuesday at a certain time and yada, yada. So we were committed to video. And then it's funny, Mike, because the original concept was going to be just me and Chad Johansson, my sales director, sitting in a conference room. And I'm not kidding you, like probably in suits and ties and just kind of having some friendly debates about industry subject matter.
And that would have been very different.
Right? It would have been very different and more typical to the industry, although I thought we could have brought our own kind of, charisma to it. But then we just had one epiphany one day, like you said, hey, if we're going to do this and we want to catch people's attention, like let's really ramp it up. And so this whole concept of let's do it on a couch, let's lose the suits and ties, let's have kind of some more authentic conversations. And then we kind of copied, we copied a show that my brother and I really liked in the Silicon Valley. It was called Dignation. And they used to have a beer while they sat on the couch and they'd talk tech news. And so I'm like, let's drink beer on it. And a younger guy in our office came up with the name Retireholics on day one. And it just kind of snowballed from there. And it just turned into this concept of, okay, well, let's have a lot of fun. Let's make it circus-like. But like you said, still talk retirement, still talk about all the valuable things people want to hear about, but insert some fun and some humor and some entertainment along the way. That's all.
Dignation was about tech. I always thought it was just about drinking.
No, yeah, they were Silicon Valley dudes, and they would dive deep into Apple and Google and all kinds of cool behind the scenes stuff. But not to sound cheesy, but It also, the show is, and you've probably picked up on it, but it's really a reflection of us just being real too. I mean, if I was going to sit around with those guys on the weekend and talk shop, that's what it would look like. And so we wanted to just recreate that.
And it's interesting you say that, because I'll bring up a common example of a guest you've had on your show, Fred Reish, and, before I saw him on the shows, I was, he was almost like a mythical dude to me. Right. For those of you who don't know, and if you don't know, you probably knew the industry. Fred Reish is one of the leading ERISA attorneys out there.
He's an icon. He's an absolute icon, a legend.
He publishes some rather interesting blogs that I've nicknamed the Fred Reish 100, because he actually is able to somehow publish 100 articles on the same subject and yet still make it interesting. But I think, when I saw him on your show, I'm like, wow, this guy's a real human being. He's just a human being just like the rest of us,
For sure. We hadn't originally intended to have guests, but it organically occurred, and I've really enjoyed it. We've had so many of these industry leaders on the show, and like you said, to kind of get them in a more relaxed kind of social environment. And again, let's not forget, still talk about the subject matter and the headlines and the things we want to talk about that are 401k. But yeah, it's a lot of fun to sit down with Fred Reish, the legend, and have beers and talk ERISA. Like, it's cool.
And that's just a small part of the real attraction. It's the show. So when you talk about beer, have you ever had offers like to do the the Retireholic sponsored by Smirnoff Ice? Have you ever had anybody come to you and say, "Hey, can you drink our beer on your show?" Or
yeah, so we've, especially early on, we always featured beer of the episode. These days with COVID, we kind of all just come to the show with whatever we're drinking. But yeah, for sure, back in the day, we've had brewers on the show where they've talked about their beer. We've actually filmed 2 shows at brewery locations. We've had brewers sponsor our live shows at conferences where they brought beer for the whole audience and then came up and did a little 1-2 on their brewery. So yeah, that has happened. What I get a lot these days, Mike, is I get a lot of inquiries from 401k related products that want to be on the show. And not to sound smug or weird, but the show to me and to the guys is not really a place to showcase or advertise your product. And so I have to screen those out a lot, in terms of, I want people on the show that want to talk shop and want to have fun and not necessarily promote the latest, widget that they have. But I do get a lot of those types of inquiries that I kind of have to screen out. So,
with the exception of the robe, of course.
Yeah, right. No. Shameless sponsorship by Robe Guy. That's okay. Yeah. And I think if we're ever promoting a product, we'll tell you straight to your face too. We'll be very transparent. Be like, all right, here we are slinging someone's product. But yeah.
And for those of you who have no idea what we're talking about, because you haven't seen the show yet, Mark Pelmy, who's one quarter of the Retireholics, has a robe. And one of the kind of jokes of the show is that, you can advertise, you can have advertising space on the robe if you want
he's going for this kind of like NASCAR patches effect on his robe. That's true.
And part of the robe also, I think, is cool because it's, again, the casual nature of the show. Part of the reason why I'm wearing a Retireholics hoodie today.
Yeah, a hoodie.
So I also want to talk a little bit about, because our audience, I think there's a lot of misinformation, believe it or not, in the world that I deal with, the advisor community, about TPAs out there. So I want to, because you're a TPA, one of the common ones out there, and it's kind of funny because when I first tuned into Retireholics, I was like, oh, what are they? Are they advisors? Are they TPAs? Because you don't really talk about that much on the show. But I'd like you to talk a little bit about it here because I think there's confusion as to what TPAs exactly do, what kind of plan sponsor clients are best suited for TPAs. And, I think there's people who know a lot and people who don't know anything. And to be honest, until I started watching your show, I kind of fell into the latter category because I work, just I think a little bit of my background by now. I work with generally with larger plan sponsors, and they generally have bundled service providers, and you don't come across a lot of TPAs.
Fair enough.
But then I actually came across a TPA with one of my clients, and I'm like, wow, they pretty much saved this this plan's bacon. They were pretty cool. I better look into it more. And that's part of the reason, one of the reasons why I started looking into TPAs more. So I think just for kind of like people who have no idea what a TPA is, maybe you could explain a little bit of that, and then where TPAs kind of are really a value add.
Sure. Well, to really simplify it, every plan, I should say, in a sense, has a TPA, right? I mean, to me, it's who's doing your compliance work, right? Who's helped you write the document, maintain the document, amend the document, do all your discrimination testing, give you contribution advice, take you through new regs, new legislation, prep your 5500, and there's all these really important niche things that happen throughout the course of a retirement plan. And so in a sense, your TPA is that compliance team or that compliance person that's doing that work. Now, what you're referring to is we tend to be compared to bundled, right? So you're either a TPA, you've hired this kind of dedicated company that does just that type of work, or you're having it be done in-house at what I would call bundled at the record keeper. Now, to me, I look at it and I say, well, it really doesn't matter. It's happening in both of those places, right? There's still people sitting in chairs, sitting at computers, trying to do that work. So I've always been puzzled by the concept of, do I go unbundled or do I go bundled? I'll throw something new at you. I really feel like you should be making the decision of who is going to do my compliance work. And so it's not TPA versus bundled. You should be comparing TPA versus TPA versus bundled versus bundled. Like if you're really a smart consumer, and by the way, I don't pretend that the plan sponsor is going to do all this stuff, but the advisor on their behalf, right? The financial advisor on behalf of the plan sponsor should be vetting out this compliance solution. And I don't think it should be I think it's naive to think like, oh, well, do I go bundled or do I go unbundled? It should be more like, no. Who's doing the compliance work? And what are they doing? What are their operations? How do they gather census? What are their checks and balances? How do they deal with internet security? What's their compliance overview? There's so many things that happen in the course of working on a plan. It's more complicated than just TPA or not TPA. And then lastly, sorry to be long-winded here, but not all TPAs are the same. And not all bundled providers are the same, which just backs up my original point. You should be comparing and contrasting them all equally and not in these two huge divisive camps. That's my opinion, at least.
Yeah. And should we be doing that in all plan contexts? In other words, I originally, when I first started learning about TPAs, I was kind of like, oh, they're for smaller plans. And this is me, maybe ignorance of me talking. But isn't it really something that even like a very large plan should be saying, hey, my bundle provider may not be doing that compliant function in a way that a specialist might do it, and I might want to pay for the specialist to do it, basically.
Yeah, I mean, you're not alone it's not your thoughts alone that TPAs are for small market. I think that's a common misconception. I honestly, if you look at my client base, and I've probably got 800 plus clients, TPA. For happiest clients are my mega clients. I mean, the ones that are really, really big, hundreds of millions of dollars, I feel like they're the ones where we make the most impact. They're the ones that have lots of serious questions, making serious decisions around all kinds of regulation changes, design changes, anything and everything. And so I think if you put aside, say, 10 of my clients and you had 3 of them that were small and 3 of them that were medium and 4 of them that were these big mega clients, you'd find that the 4 mega clients are the ones that love having a TPA. So it's kind of silly to me that the industry looks at it as though TPA should be in the small market. I almost think like it should be the opposite, but that's just weird, I guess.
Perhaps a topic for a Retireaholics live stream.
For sure. For
Yeah.
sure.
I mean, I know as an audience member, I'd be interested in exploring that a little more.
Well, look, can I ask you, Mike, like, I think that as plans get medium sized and get bigger, I think they become more cognizant and more aware of how severe and how important all of this stuff is, that comes along with compliance work. So I think it makes a lot more sense for them to have a specialist. And then secondly, and hate to kind of, preach to the choir here of TPAs, but if I'm going to choose my local CPA, I think someone doing CPA work for my business is very important to me as a small business owner, and I've only got 25 employees. I'm going to go find that person that I feel really good about, right? That firm that I know is doing a great job as a CPA, and then I can trust in terms of submitting my information to the government, because that scares the crap out of me. And so I'm much more willing to pay a higher amount to find someone who's a professional, a specialist, focuses in that area, versus just going out and finding some large CPA firm that's of a cheaper price. That would make no sense to me. So I think you can make that same analogy in the 401k world, and probably even more so because of just the severity of ERISA and the liability that these plan sponsors face.
And it's interesting you say all that, because as I've started to educate myself on TPAs, I'm almost getting the opposite of what the marketplace has actually been, which is I'm thinking there's actually probably a better case to be had for a TPA at larger plan sponsors than there is at small, to be honest, because larger plan sponsors have all those complicated issues. If you have, a lot of large plan sponsors have many affiliates and many members of the control group. And that just seems to be right up a TPA's alley. So it seems really odd to me how it's evolved kind of the opposite way almost.
I agree with you.
Yeah, in the marketplace. Okay, yeah, enough of this retirement talk.
Okay.
I want to get to a key burning question of mine, which is, you guys, I mean, I think part of your appeal as a retireaholics is that you guys almost seem too cool for retirement, if you know what I'm saying. Like, I think you used to own now correct me if I'm wrong, you used to own a surf shop, right?
True.
Way back in the day.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Now contrast that to someone like myself. I've been in retirement for my whole life. And I watched the Retireaholics and I'm like, wow, I wish I could be like them.
Yeah.
And it's like I could be like the cool kids. How did you transition from something that on paper to me seems so cool, owning a surf shop, to something that, let's face it, kind of seems the opposite of cool sometimes, being a retirement specialist,
First of all, I really appreciate you saying that about the kind of the cool factor, because that was part of the initial plan of attack. It's like we did want to have some of that cool factor to it. And so it's intentional, although, hopefully kind of natural, we're not trying too hard, but it was part of the concept. So I was born and raised a surfer, man. I mean, it's a different lifestyle. When you grow up 2 houses from the beach and you're surfing at age 7, and I'm talking, it wasn't just a hobby, right? It was my life. Like I surfed 2-3 times a day. And then I went on to have a really unsuccessful professional surfing career. And the reason why I bring that up is because I got to see the inside the surfing industry from behind the scenes for many, many years. And a lot of their marketing and branding was kind of this counterculture, kind of cool aspect that you're talking about. So I think that kind of had a heavy influence on me. And then how I got into the business was my surf shop just wasn't making enough money to support me, my wife, and my 3 kids. And so my father had started our TPA firm in 1975, and I'll try to be quick with this, but he'd been asking me for decades if I wanted to take over the family business, and my answer was always no. But now when I was financially strapped, I did this for all the wrong reasons, right? I got into the TPA work because I needed to support my family. So here I go. I get in there. My old man in a suit and tie puts me in a suit and tie and starts teaching me the ways of his business, that he founded in the mid-70s. And I loved it and really did fall in love with the concept of running a business and being an entrepreneur. But as soon as I got comfortable, Mike, and as soon as I had the experience and I felt good about what we were doing, and my dad started to let go of the reins and hand them to me and put me in charge, the surfer in me just took over. And I was like, okay, we're going to make this fun and we're going to make this cool. And I don't mean just on our Retireaholics show. I mean at our office, so long before Retireaholics, I started loosening it up. There was no more casual Fridays. It was casual every day. And, we were having fun in there. We were hitting Nerf golf balls around the office and playing music and having a good time. And so that's just me being me. And then so trying to take that to the show was a natural evolution for us, because I had been taking the surfer to the boardroom and point of sale for years before that and having success. So I knew, you said it earlier, I'll end it with this. You said, hey, Fred Reich is a normal guy. It's kind of cool to see him as a normal guy. Well, I got news for you. All advisors across the country are normal people. And your plan sponsors, they're normal people too. And so they don't mind just taking a little bit of that stiff button-up suit and tie financial services stuff and putting it to the side for a little bit and having some more real kind of fun around the same subject. So there you go.
I'm actually a bit strange, JD.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'd lump myself into that category.
Strange is good though. Don't you get that, Michael? Strange is cool. That's part of that cool factor, is being willing to just be a little strange and be a little different. I think I bring some strange to that show as well, so.
Yeah. And it's a very entertaining type of strange. Check out JD Carlson's program, Retireaholics, every Thursday night, 7:30 Eastern, 4:30 Pacific. For Kara McCauley, our wonderful producer, JD Carlson, our excellent guest today, and our entire production team, this has been Mike Webb, and this has been Revamping Retirement.
The content in this podcast is for institutional investors and plan sponsors. The information is intended to be educational and is not tailored to the investment needs of any specific investor. All examples of investor gains and losses are hypothetical and intended to illustrate the importance of early saving and consistent retirement contributions over time. Investment decisions should be based on an individual's own goals, time horizon, and risk tolerance. Nothing in this content should be considered as legal or tax advice, and listeners are encouraged to consult their own lawyer, accountant, or other advisor before making any financial decision. Thank you for listening to Revamping Retirement.